Hi world, Sativa here for another video to discuss Kamala Harris and why it's important to discuss the fact that she is not an African American. Okay, you got Kamala Harris running for president. A lot of people are saying she'll be the first African American woman, if she wins, to be the president of the United States. And I'm here to say she is not an African American. Why do I say that? And why is that important? Well, number one, if she's not an African American and she's getting credit for being the first African American this and the first African American that, then she's taking that title from someone who really is an African American woman. She's taking it. That African American will be considered the second African American woman because she'll have to stand behind Kamala. Kamala's the first African American. Supposedly, that's what you hear. It's not true. She's faking it. She's giving the perception that she's an African American to advance her career. Very similar to Elizabeth Warren and probably many other Democrat liberals who have tried to pretend they're something else for their career for whatever reason. So why do I say Kamala Harris is not an African American? Well, number one, her mother is from India. She gets her pretty brown skin from her mother from India. India is not Africa. India. It's a whole nother culture. Her mother's a Hindu. They believe in gods that have, 20 arms. They have gods, elephant gods, that they believe in. It's a totally different culture than African Americans. Her mother was only here 3 years, fresh off the boat from India, when she gave birth to Kamala. Who is her father? Well, her father is a very light-skinned Jamaican man. Very light-skinned. He's a biracial Jamaican man. His father, I had to do a little research, watch some videos on YouTube from people from Jamaica who were talking about Kamala Harris's grandfather. Her father was a white man. Not just any white man. He was a white man, a very wealthy white man who owned plantations and had many workers who, according to many of the workers on his plantations, he was cruel. He beat them. He barely paid them. They hated him. He was horrible. They know him in Jamaica as a horrible, horrible human being. That was her grandfather, not her great-grandfather, her grandfather, her paternal grandfather. He then had a biracial child, her father, who is a very educated man. He's very educated. He doesn't represent the plantations on her grandfather's plantation, the workers on the plantation who he was beating and doing all kinds of horrible things to. No, he had a child and he turned out a real intellectual, her father, light-skinned, Jamaican. Now, if your father's from Jamaica, even a biracial white and black man from Jamaica, okay, are you considered an African American when you come to America? No. Jamaica has a whole nother culture than African Americans. African Americans had to deal with slavery like 200 years ago. They had to deal with the Jim Crow laws in the 50s. They had to deal with segregation and then desegregation. They had to deal with all kinds of things. That's their culture, their history. That's their history makes and helps inform their culture and who they are. Okay, we're all representing our history. That's their history. That's not the history of the Jamaican. The Jamaican has a totally different history and culture. So her father was only here 1 year before he made Kamala. 1 year. Her mother was here 3 years. Her father was here 1 year. They got together. They made a union, but not for very long, and they produced Kamala. Okay, so you've got a Hindu from India, and you have a biracial white and black man from Jamaica who came from a very privileged situation, whose father was brutal to the people of Jamaica and is known for it, her grandfather. So you got Kamala now. Now Kamala wants to give the impression that she's African American. And she talks about, I listened to rap, I listened to Snoop Dogg in college. Well, Snoop Dogg's album wasn't even out when you were in college. That's why she has to make it up, because she's really not from that culture. She's making it up. She's taking the title from a real African American woman who could become the first African American woman this and the first African American woman that. She's taking that title. You know, Hindu from India, biracial man from Jamaica doesn't make you an African American. And we keep falling for this. That's why they keep doing it. Obama, too. He wasn't really a true African American. His mama and his grandmama who raised him were white. His father, who he barely knew, was African. Apparently, I watched a video where this African man is at this church, this Baptist church, and he says to all the people in the church, well, I'm from Africa, and now I'm an American. Aren't I an African American? And the entire congregation, it was all black folks, and the entire congregation said, no, you are not an African American, even if you're from Africa and now an American. Because African Americans have their own unique history. They're very unique in the world. They have a very unique history. You can't claim that history if your mother's from India and your father's a biracial from Jamaica. You can't claim that history if you were raised by your white mama and grandmama and your dad was from Africa. You can't claim that history. But yet they do. Barack Obama is considered the first African American to become president. It's not true. It's not true. Why is it important? Because again, they're taking the title away from somebody else who really will be the first African American man or African American woman to do this, that, and the other. You know, but Obama, just like Kamala, Obama had only been in politics 18 months before he became president. Go look it up. He's only been in politics 18 months. It was all a con job. It was all made up. Obama's from an intelligence family. The intelligence community has been running this country for a long time. And the fake news media has been their lapdog. That's why when the intelligence community assassinated John F. Kennedy, when they assassinated President Kennedy, the fake news media was there to tell everybody in America the very next day, it was the lone assassin that killed our president. The lone assassin, the Russian. He was a Russian. He was American, but he lived in Russia. It was the Russians and the lone assassin that killed Kennedy. No. We know now, no. It had nothing to do with the Russians and really had very little to do with Oswald, the lone assassin. But that was the media that led us down that road, the fake media that led us down that road. And they're doing the same thing with Obama, not really telling us who he is, faking out, faking again, and denying the African American community the opportunity to be the first. To be the first president of the United States. Because Barack Obama, not African American. And he was also supposedly raised in Hawaii, where I'm at in Hawaii, and it is a whole nother experience when you're living in Hawaii, whether you're a haole, they call the white people haoles, whether you're a haole living in Hawaii or you're a popolo, that's what they call black people, whether you're popolo or haole, is a completely different experience living in Hawaii than it is mainland. So Obama was not the first African American president. It's a lie. He wasn't. We haven't had one yet. Let's get us a real homeboy up in the office. I love Trump, though. Don't get me wrong. Trump is the man. Why do I say that? Well, first of all, they keep saying, Trump's a racist. Well, I think Kamala Harris trying to give the perception that she's an African American when she knows she's not, I think that's racist. I think that's taking something from the African American community you can never give back. Being known as the first African American woman when you're not. She's the one who's racist. Why isn't Trump racist? Well, I've already gone through this a lot of times. Google it. He gave money to Jesse Jackson's Push campaign. And he gave money back to Jesse Jackson back in the 80s. You think Jesse Jackson would come out today and be truthful? No. He's part of it. He's a scammer too. Scammer, majammer. In fact, there's a lot of people in the African American community that believe Jesse Jackson was involved with the intelligence community and was part of the Martin Luther King assassination. You know, we all saw the picture of Jesse Jackson pointing upwards. Oh, the assassin came from up there, when actually it's proved that the assassin came from down there. They proved that from the shots, the shooting trajectory. So, you know, Jesse Jackson's part of it too. So, but you think, if he wasn't, you think, oh, he would come out and he would talk about how Donald Trump supported him in the 80s. He was one of his millionaire friends who gave a lot of money to push campaign to try to get African Americans out into the business world. Trump loved that. He gave money to it. Now, does that sound like he's a racist? But Kamala Harris trying to fake out, trying to give everybody the perception that she's an African American when she knows she's not. She's from a whole nother culture, a whole nother world, Hindu, where they believe in Ganesh, the elephant god. You know, that's not very African American. I mean, come on, she's a faker. A faker. Another faker, just like Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren also faker. Back in the day, Harvard said Elizabeth Warren, that white-skinned, blue-eyed lady, was their only woman of color professor. And this is what they described Elizabeth Warren as, their only woman of color professor. So can you imagine all of the African American women that would come to Harvard and they'd go, "Oh, let me meet this only woman of color professor. I want to meet her." And they go meet Elizabeth Warren. They go see Elizabeth Warren. Can you imagine how that hurt their spirit to know that this white woman is considered their only woman of color? Yeah. It's just crazy. It's crazy. It's like, yeah, Elizabeth Warren, she done hurt a lot of people playing on that perception of being a woman of color, which I don't like the phrase woman of color. I can't even believe I'm using it, because woman of color denotes that there's a woman of no color. I don't even like the term white and black, because those aren't even colors. Black isn't a color. Black is the combination of all colors, and white isn't a color. White is the absence of all colors. Really, what we're dealing with is different levels of brown. You can go real dark brown, you can go real light brown, and sometimes pink. But we're not even dealing with white or black, and everybody's of color, except maybe albinos, and there's African American albinos, and there's, you know, Haole albinos. You know, you get albinos coming every color. They're only the true white people here. So we've been really confused when we talk about race. They use it to put us in our place. They use it to separate us. And so hopefully that's what we're going to come away with after all this. Donald Trump's a racist. No, he's not. And the other thing I wanted to say is, all of you people who say, I voted for Hillary Clinton because Donald Trump's a racist. Well, go look at the Clinton Foundation. What they did in Haiti is a horrible thing. They stole the money from those Haitians. They did. They stole the money from the Haitians, and it went into their foundation. They only gave like 2% back to Haiti, and they kept the rest. And then what they did in Haiti was they had their friend who gave millions to the Clinton Foundation. They gave him a contract. They were able to give him a contract just to open this textile factory. And they opened the factory in a place that wasn't even affected by the earthquake. And then they cut all the forests, and they took the farmland, and the farmers were left without any land, but they could work in the textile mill for $5 a day. Think, you look at Hillary Clinton and what the Clinton Foundation did in Africa, in Haiti. What they really hurt real black folks up in there. They hurt a lot of black folks, but not in America, right? They hurt them all over the world. So if you think you voted for Hillary Clinton because you was trying to do something for black folks, you fooled again. Fooled again. Wake up. Wake up. No, Donald Trump's actually been trying to help black folks for a long time. That's why they did justice. That's why they did prison reform. All the people that Bill Clinton signed that bill where if you committed, maybe sold a little crack cocaine or whatever, you were going to jail for the rest of your life. It didn't work. It didn't stop the flow of drugs. It just put a lot of people in jail for the rest of their life. Commit one crime, go to jail for the rest of your life. That's Bill Clinton. Donald Trump's the one who ended it. Now he's releasing people from prison like crazy. Non-violent drug offenders who maybe sold crack cocaine, not because they're, into crack cocaine, but they're trying to make a little money in the world. I get it. Not that I support it at all, but I'm glad that Donald Trump's trying to stem the flow, not give people the opportunity to sell drugs because there's no drugs to sell. He's trying to stop the whole problem at its root. He's radical. He is so radical. That's why the mainstream fake news media doesn't like him, because they never help the people. They're here to hurt us and mislead us. And so I'm getting back to Kamala. I had to go, sometimes, you have to go far away to get back into the point again. So I'm coming back to Kamala again. Don't believe the hype. She is not African American. She's giving the perception to try to advance her career. Okay, so that's it. I'm out. I'm out of here. I gave my little video, and I hope this helps in the conversation. Helps to give some understanding in the conversation. Right on. Okay, as we do in Hawaii, I'm signing out with an aloha. Aloha. Love you guys. Have a good one.